Good morning. Just a moment before we get started. And yes, I got a fairly positive response from residents asking about my background. So, beyond adding art from local artists, I was going to I'll start a meeting with art from around the world. So my wife and I travel all over the world, and one of the things that I love taking photos of art is the artwork, especially murals that I've seen around the world. And so the artwork that we're starting with today is actually all our from a city called Chapman, Morocco, and it's a blue city. So it's a city in Morocco where they painted buildings blue. It's actually pretty impressive, especially from a product perspective of what you get to see. So definitely, definitely worth visiting if you ever go to Morocco. Amazing city overall. But this was one of the murals. So it's a mural of what kind of the sidewalks look like and the buildings look like within the city. So definitely an interesting visit as far as that's concerned. Let's go back to our standard background, and then we'll get started. Hope everyone's doing well. Good morning. Okay, let's go get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week. This is the 100th installment of my weekly office hours. Yes, we have reached 100 weeks. It's hard to believe from a certain standpoint, but it's almost been 2 years since we started the shelter in place in the campus below COVID-19. It's amazing to see reach this milestone to a large degree. So everyone's staying healthy, enjoying our good weather. It's a very dry January and a dry February so far. Might have rain in the upcoming weeks, but we're looking forward to that. We do need the rain. We've now reached 697 days since the start of shelter in place on March 16, 2020. The county health worker, asked us to shelter in place and some volunteers since then my weekly office hour address into these weekly live stream addresses. I have most success. And now I follow up these live stream sessions with in-person meetings to being seen on Murphy Avenue. So if you want to meet me in person, talk about issues, talk about questions, just come by and say hi. You can email me and within reserve 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I cycle through quite a few people every morning, and it's actually great people to talk about what they would like to see happening in Sunnyvale. People still say they enjoy these sessions now, hearing from their mayor each week, and they allow me to provide you some news, some updates, answer some of your questions, and just provide general words of encouragement. During difficult times, about 9 months ago, Medusa. I can see that. Melissa Medina, 2 weeks. Last Monday, actually, looking at just general availability of, there's a lot of ways that you can get involved with either some of our nonprofits or just working to make your community better. Starting your own group. We have lots of people picking up trash and doing other things as far as that's concerned. And ultimately, we'll talk about that a little bit later on what happened this week. And then, of course, last Tuesday evening, Council had a short meeting. First, we approved the calendar year 2022 community event and neighborhood grants program applications. And it wasn't much discussion. These are basically grants that we give out for either a neighborhood standpoint. So it's groups of neighbors that get together and want to run an event like a potluck, especially tied around National Night Out, which happens in August. And so it's those sorts of events, that we fund. And then there's community events, and there's a variety of those. So those help fund the music downtown during the summer. It's also, the tree lighting. It also funds, the museum is holding a look back in Sunnyvale for the last 110 years and beyond in September. So it funds a lot of those events. The Arden Wine Festival gets a little bit of money. So we help try to build that community within the city, whether or not it's at the neighborhood level or at a wider level from our community events. So that was some of the money that we approved that night. And then we also approved the public art for the Civic Center amphitheater. So the amphitheater is going to go where the current City Hall Annex is. So right there at Great American Way and Olive. So there will be an amphitheater there, and we chose the final art. It was ultimately, we ended up choosing the same art that the Art Commission recommended. And we had 5 great options to choose from. So that was really great to see. We put out the request for proposals. We actually had narrowed down about 25 different artists down to 5, who then did a more detailed submittal as far as what they would like to see from a program, from an art piece standpoint. And then the Art Commission ranked them, and then Council chose basically the same piece of art that the Art Commission chose. And then on Sunday morning, of course, Target reopened, and there was, of course, much rejoicing. It was great to actually meet the staff. We had a quick ribbon cutting, met the store manager, and it was great to see so many residents lining up outside, ready to shop at their favorite Target. And I've heard a lot over the last 5 months about people from in our city that use it as, their corner store for a lot of things, but also people from surrounding cities that actually come to Sunnyvale specifically to shop at our Target because of, how friendly the employees are, how, the parking, and how easy it is to park underneath the store as well as in the parking garage. And I hear a lot of positive things, and it is amazing to see that is actually a draw for people to come into Sunnyvale. So happy that it reopened after so many months, after the 5 months of being closed. And we had a short ceremony, the short ribbon cutting, but I've been seeing that it's been busy all week long, especially that Sunday. And I think there was this pent up need, and I myself had put off certain purchases until that store reopened. So happy to shop local here in Sunnyvale. And of course, the Starbucks that's inside the Target is also open for those that enjoy visiting that Starbucks. And then on Monday of this week, the state announced that it'll be lifting the universal indoor masking requirement on February 16th. The state health orders will require indoor masking in many settings past the 16th. that includes, schools, K through 12, childcare facilities, public transit, healthcare facilities, shelters, jails, long-term care facilities. So that will continue, but this is the first step in kind of the post-COVID strategy for what the requirements will be from a state standpoint. So this is a big shift that the state has really been one of the most strictest for comparing to all the different other states in the nation. But officials said that they would unveil more details next week. So we still have a few more days to figure out what all the details are. My guess is there'll be an announcement either late today or first thing on Monday on what it looks like past the 16th. And then on Tuesday, City Council met, and it was our special meeting to appoint someone for our empty seat on council. And we've had it was a relatively long meeting, actually no public comment, which actually surprised me. I've heard a lot of advocacy for a lot of different candidates over the last few weeks, and it was mainly a lot of discussion between our council members. We deadlocked several votes, 3-3, for the top two candidates, and it was. We had lots of discussion on the positives of each one. And, I ultimately want to thank Councilmember Hendricks for his leadership in those negotiations. We finally chose previous mayor, Tony Spitaleri, who served on city council from 2005 to 2014. And, Tony will serve out the rest of Councilmember Fong's term, which ends our first meeting, January 3rd of 2023. So it's great to see Tony join our team. And, I've been working with Tony for many years while I was on the planning commission, ultimately, back in the mid 2000s. So happy to have somebody fill that seat and actually get rid of the issue that we actually had last week of having a 3-3 tie. So it was good from that standpoint. And then on Wednesday, the County of Santa Clara Public Health Department announced that it will not lift the indoor mask requirements when the state lifts its indoor requirements on the 16th. And, so Santa Clara, Dr. Cody basically said, we'll continue to base our decisions on the risk posed by COVID-19. And so basically looking at the metrics of vaccinations, hospitalizations, and case rates within the county. And so they weren't, the county health officer wasn't ready to lift the mask mandate within our county yet. And in Los Angeles County had already announced something similar, that they wouldn't be lifting that mandate until later in the month. So there are several counties that are doing that. And there were positive signals that the county anticipates that it will lift that mask mandate just in a few weeks as cases continue to decline. And we'll talk about what the case rate is a little bit later. And then on Wednesday, Governor Newsom signed that legislation to extend the COVID-19 supplemental paid leave for workers. And, so this bill passed the legislature on Monday. And then what the bill actually does is allow workers to receive 2 weeks of paid time off if they get sick from coronavirus or if they have to take care of someone in their family. And this bill applies to companies with 26 employees or more. So, California had a similar bill last year, and ultimately it expired in September. I think. So the new bill that they put in place, that the governor signed in place on Wednesday, actually is retroactive back to January 1st. So for those people that either had to take time off or whatever, they can get paid sick leave for any time that they had to take off back to the last about month and a half, as far as that's concerned. And then on Thursday, so yesterday, there was actually a press conference, and I didn't get a chance with Senators Representatives and Canadian. I had a press conference announced the proposal for part-time county officials to issue a report in the next 90 days, spelling out options to purchase the Lehigh Quarry property. And so this includes negotiations with its owners to, either negotiate with the owners or even looking at seizing that land for eminent domain. And if the Lehigh Quarries is in the hills and west of Cupertino, is really sparked controversy for many, many years over pollution, traffic, noise from that standpoint. And Lehigh Hanson, that company owns about 350, 3,500 acres around the quarry, and this is basically 3 times the size of Golden Gate Park. So for those of you that can visualize that, so and the permit that they currently have allows the large pit of limestone mine to be open through 2032, and then it needs to be reclaimed and restored. In 2019, actually, the company applied for an extension to expand that quarry, and the county hasn't granted it yet. And then, of course, last February, the company sued the county over delays as far as their request, as far as that's concerned. But I think protecting that open space and kind of reclaiming that open space will really benefit for wildlife and for people that want to hike in those areas. So I was one of several mayors who joined efforts to, at the end of the day, to support that and advocate for it. So, beyond that, there was a press release of several basically West Valley mayors, including myself, to advocate in favor of that proposal. So that'll be going in front of the county supervisors on Tuesday, but we'll see. My guess is that should pass without any problems. But ultimately, it'll be. I think it's good for everyone in the long-term health of our community. So let's go ahead and get to our COVID numbers. The COVID numbers across the nation continue to trend downward. From a national standpoint, we've now reached 77.1 million cases. That's increased by another 1.5 million just in the last week, but that's down from half of what we were a week ago, 33.2 million, and 4.5 million a week 2 weeks ago. So we're seeing it rapidly decrease as far as the number of new cases. Omicron is kind of reducing the amount that's in our community. And then we've had about 251 million people vaccinated with at least one dose. That's 80% of those that are 5 years and older, and 87% of adults have been vaccinated now, and 74% of adults are fully vaccinated. So it's really good from a national standpoint. We still have people dying because of COVID or dying with COVID. We had 18,000 just in the last week. So we're now at 910,000. So we passed that 900,000 mark. And, within a few months, we'll pass that million person mark of those people who've died with COVID. And then from a California standpoint, we've had now over 8 million, so 8.1 million positive cases of COVID. We've now dropped to at least 32,000 new cases a day. That's down from 64,000 last week and 86,000 2 weeks ago. Definitely we see a downward trend. That being said, we're not at the 5,000 a day that we were, I think, at the beginning of December. So definitely, it's going to be a while before we get back to those much lower numbers. And the case positivity rate has now dropped to about 8.6%. So now basically 1 in 10 people that get tested now has COVID. So we're seeing the case rate percentage looking good from that standpoint too. We're still having people pass away with COVID in California. Now 81,000 people have died. That's another 12,000 in the last week. But we've now given out 7.5 million vaccines. Another 700,000 just in the last week. But it's the California looks good, but even the county looks even better. Our case count is now over 296,000, another 9,000 from last week. But we were a week ago we were at 15,000 week over week. So it's all looking relatively good. It's still, people need to be on guard, take their precautions, wear masks where they feel unsafe. We've had 2,050 deaths, another 38 just in the last week. And then from a vaccination standpoint, 93.5% of those 18 and over are fully vaccinated, and 66% of those that are eligible for the booster have already received it. So those numbers are looking good. I still talk to county health and county supervisors quite often, especially this week regarding Lehigh, and advocate for more testing in our community and more availability overall. So the county drop-in health van is at Sunnyvale Community Center on the 1st and 3rd Thursday of the month. And so they'll be back here on February 17th. So next Thursday from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Appointments go quickly, but they open up about a week ahead of time. So they should be open now at sccfreetest.org. And then if you still need to get vaccinated, if you know somebody that needs to get their booster, you can find the different locations around the county that you can get your booster shot at, and that's at sccfreevax.org. Let me go ahead and talk about some upcoming events. So on Friday, nothing today. Saturday and Sunday, the Friends of the Sunnyvale Library have their book sale. This one was postponed from last month because of Omicron. But the Friends of the Library book sale basically helps fund all the different programs that they support that happen within the city. And this is a 2-day book sale this time. So Saturday at the library, they'll have the regular sale from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then Sunday, they'll have their $5 bag sale from noon to 3 p.m. So and I think, especially Sunday afternoon is always a busy time as people, and I go there quite often to buy a $5 bag of books to fill up our little free library. So ultimately, I think there's a lot of people that like, buying hard books, buying physical books and reading. And then it's also, it's a great conceivable Valentine's Day present for someone. And it's also good just to have, especially kids' books are very popular. And then Sunday, of course, Sunday afternoon is also Super Bowl Sunday. So looking forward to the Bengals versus the Rams. I'm sure our Murphy Avenue will be very busy. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, so I'll definitely be rooting for the Bengals. And of course, looking forward to all the good commercials that I think a lot of people tune in for, just to see what commercials are unveiled that Sunday. And then Monday is Valentine's Day. So lots of people will be having their dinner along Murphy Avenue, lots of specials. So enjoy that, enjoy that with someone you love if you get a chance. And then as far as upcoming council meetings, Tuesday, we'll do our ceremonial swearing in of Councilmember Spitaleri, and then, or soon to be Councilmember Spitaleri, that is. And then we'll also be looking at authorizing the city manager to execute the sublease with Planetary Ventures to continue leasing about 35 acres of land used as part of the Sunnyvale Golf Course. And so this is basically NASA/Planetary Ventures land that we have a long-term lease on. So think about a third of the golf course. So the Sunnyvale golf course is their land. Some of it's Sunnyvale land, some of it's used to be NASA land. And this is one of the amenities that we end up providing for our residents. And then next Thursday, council will have its second big all-day meeting of the year. And so this one is the Study Issues and Budget Proposals Workshop. This is, and Sunnyvale is pretty unique as far as our study issue process is concerned. We, on a yearly basis, we have these citizen council commission ideas that are proposed. And so these study issues are looking at evaluating certain new operations from the city, and it has a range. There's a wide range of things that we're looking at this year, from looking at bike lanes along certain streets that weren't part of our active transportation plan, to a Sunnyvale electric shuttle, to doing a universal basic income program, to having a warming shelter. So lots of things that we're looking at, and this is the whole thing. We wish we could do all these things. All this has to do budget, and it's not just budget to do the study, but then it's budget for long-term funding of different programs, paying for whatever the infrastructure is, and then paying for long-term staffing. And one of the things that we do from a city standpoint is we are very fiscally responsible. What we do at the end of the day is have to have a 10-year balanced budget and look at things from a 20-year plan. So the financial requirements of doing certain things is actually pretty critical from that standpoint. Making sure that we don't do unfunded programs, start something and say, oh, you know what, we can't do that anymore, even though the residents like it, because we ran out of money. So we take that bigger umbrella view of what it takes to run a city. And I think that's one of the reasons why we are seen as one of the best run cities in California, in the US. Okay, and let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. If you have additional questions, please add them to the chat now. Kimberly asked, I'm looking for some answers or guidance on who to ask. The play structure in the Orchard Gardens Park is being taken down today. Why? And are they taking the swings too? Is it being used somewhere else? What's going on? What's going in its place? So this is ultimately an easement issue along the JW Christian Greenbelt. So for those of you that have been out there, this is SFPUC land. That was created into a greenbelt many years ago. And the SFPUC did an evaluation of all of its land, double checking infrastructure, much like BG&E has done over a while. And so we had an easement to create that greenbelt. That being said, they're now requiring certain structures that are above their water infrastructure to be removed. And so this was some of the long-term questions, much like PG&E has asked certain trees to be removed above gas lines. So they came through and said certain structures, and it's not just at Orchard Gardens Park. There's several different locations where that equipment had to be removed. So these structures are being removed where required, and I'm afraid they won't be replaced. There will be grass above them, so it will be open space that people, kids can play on, and people can walk their dogs and all that. But there won't be structures to replace the old structures, and this goes back to their requirements, and it's a lot has to do with safety and access, and if they actually had to do digging and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm afraid it won't be replaced, and it was permanently removed as far as that's concerned. B commented, please bring a nice bookstore downtown. You could invite Kepler or BookSync. So many young, educated people who live downtown now would have more books. And this always surprises me. We actually have people, and this is one of the reasons why I started the eatsunnyvale.com website, because people don't know the variety of restaurants that they have in their city. Similarly, we actually, we have two great bookstores in downtown right now, Lee's Favorite Books, and that's for new books and used books. I often purchase books there. And then, of course, and it's for new books, and you can, if they don't have what you want, you can always order. And then right next door is Bookosaurus, and that's mainly for kids books, and other items, puzzles and a few other things. But it's actually a great place to buy gifts for kids. So ultimately, yeah, we actually have two great bookstores downtown, and hopefully B will get a chance to visit them. But yeah, I'm always surprised about what people don't know exists in their own community. Vivian asked, a couple of days ago, I drove from Highway 85 on Winchester Boulevard into downtown Los Gatos. The entire stretch of Winchester Boulevard has protected bike lanes on both sides of the road. I couldn't get over how similar it was to Mary Avenue, driveways parking along the side. All reasons why I've been given in the past on why Mary Avenue could not have protected bike lanes. So I haven't been able to visit Winchester Boulevard yet. With our active transportation plan, we are looking at adding protected bike lanes along certain areas in Sunnyvale and improving, general bike lanes, especially, along Sunnyvale, Saratoga, Matilda, Fremont Avenue, and some on Mary. So I have to go to Los Gatos to see where it is. I did a Google map view, and it was from March of last year. So, and there were no protected bike lanes. So I wasn't able to take a look virtually to see what that is yet. So I'll try to make it down there and see what they've done. But yeah, the number of residential driveways along, especially Mary Avenue, makes that very, very difficult. So it'll be interesting to see, that's one of the reasons why we put the bike lanes where we did, to make sure that, that yes, there's the chance of cars opening up, but you don't have all the kids between cars. It's difficult to where you put in those buffers. So let me take a look, and I'll definitely feed that back to city staff. Sunny asked, ever since COVID started, I've been working from home, which means I've started exploring Sunnyvale by foot a lot more. I walk everywhere. What I've realized is that I walk from downtown to anywhere across El Camino, or Matilda is not pedestrian friendly. The pedestrian crossings are either out of the way. There's no straight walk from downtown to Trader Joe's. They take quite some time to pass, and it feels dangerous since the road feels like 8 lanes of freeway. I have to constantly check if I won't be run over by a car turning right. Have there ever been thoughts of creating pedestrian bridges over passes like on the strips in Vegas, where one most never has to worry about crossing the busy road of cars? This would be beautifully connect to our awesome Sunnyvale downtown, which is currently somehow separated from El Camino and Matilda for pedestrians. So yeah, this has been brought up before, and people have talked about this for multiple years. The biggest thing is, well, one thing is cost, and the cost is always a big thing. It's like however many bridges you want, people would say, oh, we need more bridges, but the biggest thing is land. Because they have to be ADA compatible, you need land, a lot of land on both sides so both sides of the road to deal with that. And from a Matilda standpoint, there you can cross at Evelyn and get to the other side of Matilda very easily. One of the things that we're doing is changing those lights, and especially some of those places along El Camino, we've actually removed the pork chop, the concept of having an island in the middle of the street where you have to walk from the sidewalk to the island and then walk to the crosswalk, like at Sunnyvale and El Camino. But in general, it is difficult from an El Camino standpoint to deal with because it's a major thoroughfare, and also it's run by Caltrans, so there's a lot of approval that would actually need to be achieved as far as that's concerned. But in general, it's the ADA compliance that you need much larger ramps. It's not like, oh, you can just plop something very closely down there. You actually need a lot more space to deal with building a bridge, dealing with a ramp to get to that bridge. So those sorts of things are not simple and cost a lot of money from an infrastructure standpoint that conceivably be difficult to have in a lot of places. Hugo asked what's happening with the old Sunnyvale Fries. Any chance the site will rezone for affordable housing? So I haven't heard any news. I've reached out to several developers and haven't heard anything yet about what's happening at Fry's. I do know that they moved a lot of their equipment from all their other stores to that store, but haven't seen any proposals as far as that's concerned. Heather asked, are there any updates on what's happening with the old Orchard Supply? Is that area being redeveloped? And I've seen preliminary plans on that. And a lot of that has pending finishing the El Camino Real specific plan. So we're about to do the draft environmental impact report that should be coming out late February, beginning of March, or sometime in March. And so that will kind of specify how much housing can be in that area, and then conceivably we'll see a real proposal for what might go at the old Orchard Supply site, which in the past I've heard it looks like it's going to be a mixed-use site of retail with apartments or condos nearby. Lisa asked, I'd be interested to know why West Remington was paved over in the summer and now has huge patches dug up for what looks like cabling. These patches make an uneven asphalt in the new road. It makes no sense to me. So normally we work with developers or lots of the utilities to figure out what their schedules are. And if they're making changes, we hold off that paving. The contractor doing work on Remington, I did finally hear back. Remington between Hollenbeck and Persimmon is actually installing fiber optic communications on behalf of Verizon. And patches that are currently seen on the north side of the street are temporary. And once the work is completed, and it should finish sometime in the next few weeks, they'll finally do smoother pavement restoration after all that's completed. So it's those patches are currently temporary, and once they finish all that work, they will go back through and do more permanent changes as far as that's concerned. She asked any so in visiting and talking to their manager, they on replacing the fireproofing, which was the main reason why it's closed down in the beginning. And although they did do some, and so they didn't do any display, or they didn't do any major reconstruction, but they did do some moving some of the shelving around, some of the displays around. So there are some changes as far as that's concerned. Questions? Doesn't look like it. So let's go ahead and wrap up. See anything else? Maybe. No, I don't see any further questions. Thanks for joining me again this week for our 100th time. COVID continues to cause our community, our state, our country to really struggle. The last almost 2 years have not been easy. That we all face a lot of challenges. And especially people when it's serving our others in need in so many ways. Issues always continue to come up, but your actions, their attitude really do make a difference. So we'll merge this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We will get through this together. Thanks for listening. Enjoy Valentine's Day and go Bengals. Bye.